Good morning, my dear learners. I am Glarmina, Academic Counselor, IGNOU RC Cochin, 14000. Hope all of you are safe and fine at your home. So today we are going to start our next unit. That is Unit 9, Introduction to Attitudes and Stereotypes. It is in Block 3, Unit 1. So first we can see how we can define attitude. So attitude, it basically refers to an individual's specific state of mind through which he expresses his opinions and feelings towards some conditions, things, event and persons in his social environment. So we can say that it is an individual's specific state of mind through which we express our opinions and feelings towards some conditions, persons, event, object, etc. For example, attitude towards widow remarriage. Next comes the nature of attitudes, its components. So, in the beginning, psychologists defined attitude in terms of one dimension, that is the affective component. So at that time, attitude was considered as a learned predisposition to respond in a consistently favorable or unfavorable manner with respect to a given object or situation. So here the person's intensity of feelings was emphasized. Later, the psychologists, they tried to explain attitude in terms of two dimensions. So their cognitive component was also added. So cognitive component, it refers to a person's opinions and beliefs towards some object or event. So here in this example we can say that it is the belief or opinion regarding widow remarriage. Later the psychologists, they again explained attitude in terms of three dimensions. So here the behavioral component is also added. So now we can say that attitude consists of three components: the affective component, cognitive component and behavioral component. This approach is known as ABC of attitude. So first we have a belief that widow remarriage is good and it is good for our society, and then we are having a favorable attitude towards widow remarriage. So as a behavioral component, we organize meetings, gives lectures in favor of widow remarriage. That is the behavioral component. So behavioral component basically indicates the action a person would take in favor of or against the event or object of attitude. Another example about our attitude towards smoking. We have the opinion or belief that smoking is injurious to health. So in the affective part, so that is our what I said is our cognitive part, that is our belief. Then in the affective part we have a dislike towards smoking. So we feel disgusted when we are in the midst of people who smoke. So in the behavioral component we can say that we will avoid such situations later. Okay, so that is the ABC of attitude. Now comes the nature of attitude. So we can say that there are three basic understanding which is necessary when we study about attitude. So first is valence. It refers to the degree of favorableness or unfavorableness. Okay. Next is the complexity, multiplexity, that it means the number of elements in a component. So if the number of elements is higher, the more the complex will be our attitude. Next comes the consistency, whether our attitude is consistent over time. So these are some of the necessary characteristics. Okay. Valence, multiplexity and consistency. Next comes the characteristics of attitudes. So first, as attitude is learned. So we can say that a person is not born with attitude, but he or she acquires it from their family, from their school, from during their upbringing time. So the experiences and the process of socialization may predispose a person to become favorable or unfavorable towards an object or a situation. Next is attitude gives direction. So attitude directs our behavior. Next, relative permanency. So it means that attitudes are stable over time and we prefer to be consistent with our attitude over time. And there are chances for changes in attitude through persuasions and it occurs gradually. Next is attitude is always related to some issue, object or thing. So the development of attitude occurrence, it means the development of attitude occurrence of some event, thing or person is a must factor. Next, attitude has motivational properties. So this attitude motivates a person to do some behaviors more readily than others. So if we have a positive attitude towards sports, we may go for play than pass the time reading some books. So it shows our readiness also. Next comes attitude and beliefs. So attitude is closely related to belief. And belief is defined as an enduring organization of perceptions and cognitions about some aspects of individual's world. And beliefs are cognitions or thoughts about the characteristics of objects. So actually attitude is an organized system of cognitive, affective and behavioral component and belief is primarily cognitive component. And we can thus say that belief is a part of attitude. An attitude has motivational properties, I have mentioned it. It directs our efforts in specific direction while a belief does not have this property. So all attitudes towards an object have relevant beliefs about that object. And beliefs are based on real facts while attitude is based more on imagination and less on reality. And the change in attitude comes faster than in beliefs. Next comes the theories of attitude organization. So social psychologists, they gave a number of theories to explain attitude organization and these theories can be clubbed under 4 major categories. First is cognitive consistency theories. It includes the following theories like Hairer balance theory, Newcomb ABX theory, Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory, Rosenberg's affective cognitive consistency theory, congruity theory. Next comes the social learning theory. So these theories include the following theories like theory based upon classical conditioning and upon instrumental conditioning. Next comes the functional theories. It includes the following theories like Katz and Stotland theory, Smith, Brunner and White theory. And there are some other miscellaneous theories also. And they are Kelman's 3-process theory, assimilation contrast theory and adaptation level theory. So we can just discuss a few selected important theories. First is Hairer's balance theory. So it is also known as P or X model and it was given by Hairer in 1946 and in 1958. So it has 3 elements. So the first is the perceiver known as P and the second another person called O and the third X, an object of perception. So we will try to understand this through an example. So here Sunil, we can call him as P, likes Krishnan. It is Krishnan, we can call him as X. So Sunil is the perceiver and Krishnan is the object of perception and Preeti is another person, O. So Sunil likes Krishnan and Preeti, but Preeti is not liked by Krishnan. So Sunil likes Krishnan and Sunil likes Preeti, but Krishnan and Preeti, their relations are negative. So, the relations between Sunil and Krishna and Sunil and Preeti are considered as positive, but the relations between Krishna and Preeti are considered as negative. So, this disturbs Sunil. So, Sunil, he tries to change his relation either with Krishna or Preeti. So, if he starts disliking Krishna, balance is restored. Or if he starts disliking Preeti also, his balance can be restored. Okay. So, this is the theory called Haider's balance theory. So, pairs this formed of these elements have two kinds of relationships, that is unit relations and affective relations. And the unit relations between pairs of elements depend on similarity, ownership and similar membership. The affective relations are based on liking and disliking. So, elements may be in a state of balance or imbalance. When balanced, the individual feels relaxed and there is no tension. So, however, a state of imbalance between the elements creates tension and motivates individuals to restore balance. So, here in this case, to restore balance, Sunil will start disliking Preeti or Krishna. Next is Katz's functional theory. So, it opined that motivational basis is the key to understand attitudes. So, according to him, the attitude serves 4 functions. So, the first function is instrumental, adjective or utilitarian function. So, it means that the individual tries to maximize rewards and minimize punishment. So, how we develop a favorable attitude? We will measure the reward and the punishment because of that attitude. So, we will develop favorable attitudes towards those objects which results in reward and unfavorable attitudes towards those which lead to punishment. Next comes ego defensive function. So, here the attitude protects a person from acknowledging unpleasant realities about himself or environment. So, we are trying to compensate our feelings of insecurity and low self-esteem through forming attitudes. Next comes value expressive function. So, here we are holding attitudes commensurate with our personal values or self-esteem and it gives us satisfaction. Next is knowledge function. Here every individual is perceived to have a basic drive to understand, to make sense out of and to structure his experience. So, why we form attitude? To gain knowledge. So, elements of experience that are inconsistent with what a person knows are rearranged or changed to achieve consistency. So, we always form attitudes which are consistent with our values and knowledge. Next is Kelman's 3-process theory. So, in this theory, he suggests that attitude organization is influenced by 3 distinct processes of social influence, namely compliance, identification and internalization. So, in the compliance, we can say that compliance can be said to occur when an individual accepts influence from another person or from a group because he hopes to achieve a favorable reaction from the other. So, we form an attitude through the compliance from others. Next is identification. So, identification can be said to occur when an individual adopts behavior derived from another person or a group because this behavior is associated with a satisfying self-defining relationship to this person or group. So, here we are forming attitude to identify with another person whom he considered as a role model or sometime. Next is internalization. So, internalization occurs when an individual accepts influence from others because the induced behavior is congruent with his value system. So here the content of induced attitude or behavior is internally rewarding. The attitude or behavior helps to solve a problem or is demanded by the values of the individual. So these are the three major theories. Next comes the stereotype. So stereotype, it is basically a cluster of beliefs. It usually lacks rational basis regarding a member of some group. So the word stereotype was first used by Walter Lippmann in his book Public Opinion in 1922. So all the members of the group are perceived and understood alike here. So stereotype is a belief about some particular trait being prevalent among all members of a social group. So stereotype is a set of beliefs used to categorize people, and this categorization is exaggerated and lacks in truth. Why this categorization? It provides for the basis for gross generalization about people. Some particular physical, social and cultural characteristics are ascertained which serve to identify people of that group. There is general consensus as to the prevalence of a particular trait among people of that category. It is assumed that a person will exhibit all the traits of that category simply because he is a member of that group. So, stereotype, it is considered as a mental picture or image about people of a community or category on the basis of which we ascribe traits or characteristics to people. So here are some examples for stereotype. The politicians are found to be opportunistic. So this is a widely agreed belief. Stereotype is a set of beliefs. So what it lacks is, here we form a gross generalization and we are overvaluing these generalizations and we are undervaluing or underestimating the exceptions. So stereotypes usually are not amenable to change despite information and evidence to contrary. If we see something against our stereotypes, we will see it as an exceptional case, but we will not try to change our stereotyped thinking. A stereotype can have either direction, that is, it can be positive or negative. For example, Japanese are generally believed to be industrious and vigilant, and Bengalis are usually thought to be timid and shy. So these are all examples for stereotypes. How we develop and maintain stereotypes. So a major cause of development of stereotypes is inadequate and improper experience and information about people of other group. So we are getting inadequate and improper experience and information. So based on that information we form stereotypes. Then experiences with a handful of people of other community lead to formation of wrong notions about them, and it is generalized to all the members of that particular community. So how these stereotypes are developed? So parents help in developing stereotypes to deal with people of other community. So many parents, they try to encourage their children to develop stereotypes thinking. It will better prepare them to deal with people of other community. Next is imitation. So in order to become an acceptable member of the community or the society we live in, we simply imitate the beliefs, opinions and attitudes held by our authority or parents, etc. Even without thinking their desirability and logical validity, we simply imitate others' attitudes or beliefs. Next is traditions and folkways. So traditions and folkways prevalent in a culture also helps to foster stereotypes. Next is social and cultural distance. It is another important factor in the development and maintenance of stereotypes. So social distance, it prevents us from gaining right knowledge and information about people of other community and society. Similarly, due to cultural distance, we lack knowledge about their living styles, habits, customs, beliefs, opinions and attitudes of people of other culture. And this lack of correct knowledge and information about other people provides breeding ground for the development and maintenance of stereotype. Next, stereotypes and social life. So stereotypes, they serve a number of social functions also. First, the stereotypes help understand social behavior. So stereotype that politicians are opportunistic, that helps us to understand their behaviors and we are not easily taken in by their statements and claims. Then second, it helps control social behavior. So these stereotypes that equip us with a power that automatically directs our behavior in a specific direction. Next, it helps in prediction. So whether right or wrong, the stereotypes, they control our social interactions. We even predict behavior on the basis of stereotypes. For example, Nepali servants are believed to be brave, honest and reliable. Thus, we can predict that our house and property will remain safe in the hands of a Nepali servant when we are out on vacations. Okay. Next comes the difference between stereotype and prejudice. It's another term. So in stereotype, all members of the community are treated alike as they are believed to have some characteristics, while prejudice can take any direction. It can be positive or negative or both. So prejudice is a type of attitude. So we can say that it has three components, that is affective, cognitive and behavioral component. So stereotype is basically cognitive. As I have told you, it is a set of beliefs. So stereotypes is cognitions and expectations from persons simply because the person is a member of a particular group or community. And the stereotypes are comparatively more stable than prejudice. Okay. Here comes the end of the unit. Hope the session is useful for you. Thank you.